Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Brian Whitten and ET Art. How are you all? I'm just going to make a quick video today. One would hope a lot quicker than the last one, which was an hour and 9 minutes, but in my opinion worth the views. Not that it gets that many. This is my original channel. I've actually been stopped from uploading content onto this one here, which is why at the moment you're finding my work on this one here. This is Brian Whitten, and you'll know the difference between one and the other. If you get to this page, this is where our new videos are going up, or my new videos are going up, and confirmation part 1 and part 2 are here. Don't be confused that the icon there to display that confirmation part 1 is the same icon we see on the other page, this one here, but this is the Hidden History of Neanderthal, so it's actually a different video, but I did put a link here, so if you know where my ET Art channel is, if you click that link it will take you back to the other page that I just showed you. Now moving on from there, before I go on discussing any of the new content in Confirmation Part 3, The Folding Galaxy, I just want to cross, if I can, back to Confirmation Part 2, where we discuss a number of people being removed from the Earth for their crimes against children, crimes against humanity and genocide. I won't do too much but discuss the discrepancy in the numbers and understand why they're there. Now the discrepancy in the numbers were 6.8 billion, which is what we obtained from decoding the numbers in the glyph that we see inserted at this point. The circled portion of those glyphs tell us the amount of people being taken from Earth. But there was a discrepancy of 6.8 billion and the other figure. And the other figure of 6.75 billion people we had worked out from 6,888 kilometres, which is written in multiple places. You can go back and watch part 2 if you wish, because I would recommend part 1, part 2 and part 3. It's a very good path to follow with the videos on my Brian Whitten YouTube channel. So the discrepancy then is 500 million people. That is not a little amount of people by any stretch. It's what I wanted to tell you at this point, that the 888 Maui is on Easter Island is where we've worked out our calculations here. But the calculations of 888 Maui, there are 888 Maui, there are 887 of them standing. The 888th Maui is lying still on the bedrock attached, only half finished. Half. 6.75 to 6.8. There is our half, relayed to us in the fact that the last Maui is half finished. I will insert this picture for you so you get a nice clear image, so that you can see possibly what I could see. And I come back to the TV now, and like I said, I can see the face of Jesus here, right here, looking directly at me. He's very, very happy. He has a very big smile on his face, and his eyes are here, and he's looking at me underneath his outstretched arms, I guess, to a degree, but this seems to walk into a suit, like a stairwell here. That when you watch the video, and this video is actually up online on my original channel, that is who we see here. So I would expect that he's probably pretty happy that I've stuck to my guns here to get the whole story right to the very end, and I thought I'd finished quite some months back actually. I haven't been able to make a video, even if I could have, because I've got a PC here that I use to do all my file creations, and it just wouldn't even turn on. And it turned on a couple of weeks ago, which is when I realised I've still got a few more videos to make, and it was in the process of making those videos in this lounge room that my channel got restricted from uploading videos. So you're having a good listen there, gentlemen. Once again, I'll insert this image for you so you can have a nice clear copy of it. And we come back to our TV now, and I showed you this in part 2. and it showed you that the white man's face here and the black man's face is here, although it's not clear in this picture, it is in the following. And that our movement across here was showing us which beings were created in the galaxy as it expanded. The Neanderthal was in the middle here, right there, with his brow here, his eye here, his nose here, and he's sticking his tongue out at these people, which is why I think that the Neanderthal may not have been brought back into existence with the way humans were. We were brought back into their time to help them with this problem. I won't go through that again. Our male reptilian here with the male sign over his head, and the female reptilian more here with her eyes and her head here, but it's held low, and when it's held low she develops a human face with a nose and eye here. And so this image that we see with the humans on the most right side and the aliens to the most left side is telling us that the humans were in the very creation part of the galaxy. I won't go through that too much, but I did want to come back here because I questioned what was more this side of the rock, and I'll show you what was. And more to the right side of that rock, we now see our black man's face is more in here and more easily visible. But over on this side is what I wanted to question. I'll zoom in here a little bit, just in the hope that you can see it a little bit more clearly. This portion here. I'll bring it up to the centre of the screen a little bit more here, so we can see what we're seeing. What we can see is a pyramid here, a pyramid shape, but the pyramid on this face is actually the front of what appears to be like Noah's Ark here. It's like a boat that's crashed into the pyramid. And I said, well, maybe this is telling us we got here from a crashed ship. This is in a galaxy that was 7 billion years old. But I think I've got that wrong. I watched this again, and here you can see a T. And I think that we're actually saying here is, yeah, okay, well, from the story of Noah's Ark, in other words, the recreation of humans, which is us getting taken into the future by the reptilians to resolve their problems with being able to, you know, they've taken on the human DNA as well. I don't want to go over with what I've spoken about. But without doubt, I think that the T here, fallen down, is in actual fact referring to time travel. In other words, what they're saying here is, ever since the rebirth and the processes we are shown in the pyramid, it makes sure, as I've said before, that the problem, whether it be on the reptilian side or the human side, of this behaviour of genocidal maniacs that we've got running our world, that think, or the royals that think their existence is far more important than others, that is what is not going to go into advanced worlds. And what I'd say, this is why we see the T lying down, meaning that ever since this process has happened, they never ever get their hands on the tools of time travel. And I'll show you two other images that would reflect exactly that. I'll insert this image for you so you can see it nice and clearly. And when we come back to the TV now, I will explain to you what I believe we are being told in this image. Here we see a man, he's like sitting down here, and this is like got arches here like it's a car or some sort of travel device. In front of it you have a hammer here, and a spanner here, and a spanner here, and he starts disappearing here. He's starting to fade away. He's starting to fade away before he gets his hands on the tools of time travel. And if I show you who this man is, when I change the light on this rock to this portion, it also shows me this. I'll insert this image for you as well so you get it nice and clear. It's exactly the same part of the rock. I haven't moved the rock at all. All I'm doing is moving the light, and it's changing the message. Now we come back to our TV and we look at what we're seeing here as who it is they're not going to allow the tools of time travel. We have our man here. He's now a cloaked man. It's very easily cloaked, and here he has an open book. His hands are stretched around here. We even have a lit candle in front of him right here. The tools that I just showed you in front of the device are now disappeared. But they're telling you that this man and his beliefs and what he stands for never ever gets their hands on the tools of time travel, and that is why I believe we're seeing the fallen T next to Noah's Ark, next to the pyramid, because that's why it tells us that. It's in actual fact telling us that they made certain that both on the reptilian side of things and on the human side of things, that behaviour never ever exists beyond the star array that we've spoken of till this point. I'm not 100% certain whether I've actually even put this in a video yet, but I had put this up on my social media channel on Facebook and described the way the black hole had absorbed, taken in our galaxy. This is wrong. I could draw a big red cross through this like this. I'm certain it's wrong, and now I'm going to show you what it is that makes me believe an alternative theory. And I'm not a physicist, I'm just merely here trying to read a story that's been left here in lots of different ways, so I'm doing the best I can. I want to take you first of all to the schist plate. So the schist disc, an Egyptian artifact that is supposedly unexplained. I don't think for a minute what I've written here is wrong, but once again, just like the light moving on a rock can give you multiple messages, so can the artifacts. It's exactly the same thing. In this instance, I've said that the moon is made to orbit the sun in sync with Earth, protecting the equatorial region, stopping the tsunamis that would otherwise ensue, and that this be the closest, if that was the roundness of the sun with the moon in front of it, it's never as close to Earth as it is now, because at the moment if you had a full eclipse, a solar eclipse, it covers the sun entirely. It doesn't here. And it has two inner positions, so in other words, as the Earth is orbiting the sun, the moon is moving in and out, in sync with Earth, moving in and out like this. The Middle Easterns are breeding when the moon is at its closest to Earth, but the Asians are breeding when it's at its furthest. It is a 5-month movement in and out, no matter which of these it goes to. It goes to this one every 10th month, which is when the Asians breed, but their gestation period is 3 months faster than the Middle Easterns, because the gestation period for a Middle Eastern would appear to be 3 months longer, so 12 months to carry a child. I certainly believe that this crop circle here is indicating exactly as I've just shown you with the schist disc, the movement of the moon in. This is how big it is as it's closest to Earth, in front of the sun. And then we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months for that motion to take place of going in and come back. It's really 4 months for it to be back where it started from. And we're also seeing the two inner rings here, so in other words, one larger and then the one where it's furthest in. Very same thing that we just shown on the schist disc. But in that I see something else. In other words, when we look at it more from a side view, and I believe what we're being told here is the galaxy. What I want you to note here is that what I think we're seeing here, and not necessarily the galaxy folding back like this, but where I've shown you in my drawn picture before that the galaxy is being pulled down the hole, or the black hole from the centre, that isn't what happens. I think this is what happens here. It is actually pulling the dead stars back from the outer over the top, not doing it the way I drew in my first diagram. And I've drawn another rough diagram here that may explain things a little bit better. Now, before showing you my hand-drawn diagram to explain the folding galaxies I've just shown you, I want you to understand where I'm getting the thought processes from. This plate here is showing us the inner and outer ring of Earth. In other words, Earth is not always on the ring of rotation it's on now, 93 million miles from the Sun. It is sometimes out 40 million miles beyond Mars, out here in the outer ring of rotation. It's part of the process of putting it beyond these balloon fields that I've spoken of in part 2. And it does. It's done for various reasons, and like I said, it's not always do you understand all of the reasons why until something else crops up, and then you can understand another reason for things being the way they are. I said to you that the outer ring of rotation here is 186 million miles from the Sun. It's reflective of the speed Nibiru comes through the system, or I shouldn't say Nibiru, I should say red dwarf star, because there's, like I said, 3 of them cycling around in our star array. But what I wanted to come back here for and tell you that I suggest that what we're actually getting here is a lesson, another lesson. The movement of Earth, when it's pushed between here and here, or when it's pushed back between here and here, when it starts here, it's just pushed out once and it just goes all the way on its own. It gets to beyond these fields and it stops its movement out. But that isn't what I wanted to bring up here. What I wanted you to be aware of is that between the inner ring and the outer ring, no matter which way you're going, Earth is always laid over on its side. It's still orbiting, it's still spinning around on its axis, and it's livable when it's coming back in here for at least 4,000 years. It gets to a point here, 2,000 years into a 6,000 year movement. That's what it takes, 6,000 years to go that way or that way. I know for a fact that when it gets pushed out, they don't have to hit it anymore. They knock it over in one go and it gets out there on its own. Coming back in is not the same thing. Coming back in, it's bumped. Also, I want you to realise that we're seeing a 50-50 split here in distance from there to the Sun. There's going to be a reason for all these things being the way they are, and for the planet to be laid on its side. Now we'll look at my diagram and understand why I wanted you to see that that's exactly what happens here. I could go through all the process of telling you why, but we'd be here all day again. I don't want to be doing that. We've gone through that process before. This is rough, yes, but I think we can understand here what's actually happening. I think what we're being told, and when we see the schist disk and the fold over the corners, or 3 angles, doesn't necessarily mean anything that it's free, that the galaxy was once a spiraling 3, you know. It could be that when it was spiraling, you know, before the black hole on the other side, that it may have had 3 major components. But who knows, I don't know, and it's probably not that important. I think the important thing is to realise that the old star, or the star that's being brought through the black hole, the one that's just arrived into our galaxy within the last few months, one discussed again in part 2, I do suggest you go back and watch that. There has been a star brought through the black hole. What I think we're being told, and I especially say that's why I wanted you to be aware of the distance between the Sun and the inner ring and the outer ring, is they lay Earth over from there. What they might be telling us is that what happens when the old stars created in the outer reaches of the galaxy, right out here, start to die. They need to renew again, so what they do, the galaxy does, naturally. It may be that the build-up of mass here is spiraling away with nothingness. You know, that the part in the middle is expanding to where it's got nothing there. You know, because if the galaxy is going to all come from its point of origin, which is its centre, it may be that all the mass is moving away here. The dead mass here is then cycled this way, comes back into the hole this way, back through the black hole, and then recreates a galaxy here. That's actually what they're saying, I believe, in that schist disk. And I'll tell you why I believe that's the case. But before moving away from this, you'll note that I've just put north and south here. Actually, you see I've got north pointing up this way. When Earth is pushed back in from its outer ring of rotation, it's not this is the galaxy we're talking about here, but when on that plate it is pushed back in, it actually has to be pushed in each time. It's being bumped in every 1,000 years. I think in that lies a very, very sensible understanding. I think what we're being told, that if the galaxy's expanse from the inner to the outer is as it is, once this process starts, that all of the solar systems that exist within half the width of the galaxy here, all the solar systems begin to roll over like this. They still operate in their individual entity without a problem, But that's what I believe we're getting told. So this doesn't probably sit like this. Once it starts to move and the movement starts to take, that all of the solar systems, probably from half the spans of the galaxy, which is why they've designed that Earth's movement the way it is, there'll be another lesson there, that the solar systems within half of the galaxy's width start to lay over this way. They then move their way towards the outer part here, where they're coming to this turn here. Whether they get to this way and come up like that, or whether they get to this way and come up like that, is depending on what went before it. And this is why I mentioned to you about the bump, bump, bump thing. If you've got opposing fields and you've got one solar system here and another solar system here with north to north, and the movement is this way, well, this one's going to hit this one and bump it in. This one's going to hit this one and bump it in, because you're going to have opposing fields. It's going to be like, I guess if you're going to say it, it's probably like current flow in a wire, because it's technically, that's what they say, there is whole current, you know, but that's what they're doing. So we might see the galaxies, we might see the solar systems here operating a little bit like current flow does in a wire. Like I said, I'm not a physicist, so I find it really, really difficult to explain in, you know, terms that are more technical, but to be quite frank, you know, I think this is probably the easiest way to understand the concept. Now, when we get down here, we've got the same problem, because if here, it's not a regular thing, it's not going to go up like this, you're not going to get any bump, bump, bump effect here. If you've got south-north, you're going to be attracting these. They have to be opposite and opposing fields from the point of view of a solar system and star, pointing at another one coming up like this from the bottom. You've got to bump them away like this. So that's what I believe we are getting told, in the way they're designed, the way Earth moves. And that, like I said, it could be half the span of the solar system, half the span of the galaxy. From the moment the motion starts, could all just start falling over. They still keep working, everything's fine within each of the solar systems. There's nothing disrupting that. But now we come down to here, and this is where I bring in, we could look at our CERN logo here, and this little latch here that I've spoken to you about in part 2, where they say, oh no, well, it's spinning in the opposite direction. I'll be honest with you, if this is random here, and this is random here, not necessarily random, but this one is going to be going up that way, and the other has to come along and go up that way, to have your opposing fields repetitively here, pushing the matter back in. It has to be done, something of that nature. If it's random here, well, it's not going to come out down here in a fixed order, it's going to be random down here. So in actual fact, where we see, I think that's a bit of guesswork in the CERN logo, where I said to you that this galaxy here is spinning in the opposite direction than this one. I'm not so sure it is, and I'll explain why. If the randomness here is reflected the very same as here, well then the reason this part of the galaxy was cycling in the direction it was is something beyond the galaxy. If that's actually what's driving the motion, it's something beyond the galaxy, well then there's nothing changing when you get down here beyond the galaxy. Right, so in other words, the parameters that are here that make the galaxy spin in, or I should say cycle in the direction it is, not spin, it's probably not the appropriate word, but the thing that makes the galaxy spiral in the direction it is here, if it is beyond the galaxy that creates the motion, well then it has to be the same here. There's no reason for this part of the galaxy down here to spin in an opposite direction than this one, if in actual fact the thing that makes that be the case is still beyond the galaxy. So each one of these systems that comes down here, I would expect to flip to a point driven by what is beyond that making this happen, so that this side will actually spin exactly the same as this side. That's actually what I think happens. I did at one point think it was the opposite way round. There was this glyph here, I should say there is this crop circle here, which we go back and look at again. that I believe is reflective of exactly that. A requirement to come down here really, really early in the piece, when the galaxy first started to come through the black hole on this side, but there was a visit required very, very early on here. And this is, so that visit very early on here is, like I said, it's very, very early here. This is probably, you know, within 3 million years of the movement. You know, and I'm not saying we came here and populated them, but we could have done. I'm just not 100% certain. There's certainly a visit here, and it would have been to work that out. And you know why they've had to come here and do that? Because they didn't know the answer to the question. And these are very, very smart people. They've come here to prove and be certain of what was going on this side. Why? Because they saw the randomness of the uptake. So they've seen the randomness of the solar systems being dragged up, and they've come here and thought, well, if it's that random there, what is driving that? We need to know what's going on over here, because we can't assume what's going on here. We're designing a situation that gets rid of the problem. So like I said, that's what I would definitely see that. There is one thing I'll show you that, in my opinion, proves that the case. And this is where I believe we're getting told that's the case. If what I've said to you, we are bringing the star that's just gone through the black hole, I'll do an inserted picture here again, yet again, the picture we are showing here, is that the star is protected. It's in a ball. So in other words, it's protected. It's going to be the right age. It's not going to deplete at all, because that's exactly why they're showing us these things. This is the full solar cycle of the sun here, from the point that a star is taken on, star X, a new star into the array, which is one that's been pulled through the black hole 33 million years ago, or thereabouts. That the whole process of aging the elements within the star to make it look far older, this is why this process happens. This is why Earth gets pushed out. It's one of the reasons that gets pushed out beyond these fields into these high-speed neutrino particles that obviously somehow, it's beyond my it's beyond my pay grade, I could tell you. Here we are seeing 22,000 years, both here on the inner ring, 22,000 years on the outer ring. It's not that long, because there's 6,000 year movement between both, in and out. But the reason I wanted to come back here is we've already gone through the process of saying we've gone this far through, that we have had these here, groups of men are actually reflective of the thousands of years. There's 44,000 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, counted by the legs, 1, 4, and so on here, 4 here, 11 here. We've got 4 here and 12 here. 2 times 48, which is our 48,000 years, and 1 65,000 year cycle. We are just here. We know we're just here without doubt. I've gone through that in other videos, but I want you to be aware that the last one here, this is the 22,000 years looking forward for Earth in this solar system with our sun. I want you to note that this bloke here, there's 22 on each of these lines, but this one here is longer by about a block. There's no extra guy, it's just taken up a little bit more space. Why? Because it's longer. We've already discussed that. The water goes around the core of Earth here, it lessens the apparent mass. It reduces its speed through space as opposed to what it would have been, and reduces the ability of these magnetic fields to spin Earth to a 16-hour day. It will slow the rotation to 21 instead of 16. It'll be faster than it is now, yes, but it will slow it quite considerably from what it would have been sitting in the plane. And also the speed through space is far, well, put it this way, it's an 11-month year, sorry, 11.5 month year for these remaining 16,000 years here, the last 6 here as the cycle to get back out. The reason I wanted to come back in here is suggest to you that we have now gone through these ones here, 176,000 years. I believe that we are being told that that is telling us how old the star is they've brought through from the other side. Right? Now if the galaxy absorbed from the middle, and we've already got 3/4 here, well, the reflective, the number we're seeing reflected here is 176. It's going to be 1.7 billion years. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be reflective of the age of the star, which is why in the star array it gets put right alongside the sun, which at one point was the star that's got put through the black hole 33 million years ago. So for us to be getting another star brought to the people that have to leave Earth from the other side of the galaxy, at 176 it's going to be 1.7 billion years old. How can you bring a star from the other side through that's 1.7 billion years old if in actual fact the galaxy started through the black hole at the centre? It didn't. That's what I'm saying to you, which is the main reason why I've made the video today. It's certainly, from a layman's term, I guess it probably, it probably didn't really matter from a technical perspective of those. And once again, it could be something that all of you blokes up the top of town already know as well. But I certainly would suspect that that's exactly why that's happening, which would also lend weight to the fact that the galaxy, when it went in to the black hole, didn't draw back from its centre, but folded over from the outside. And that fold over must happen. It may happen because the matter in the centre of the galaxy just keeps moving out to the point there's nothing there. That could be a very, very natural occurrence, although it does mention dead stars. So, once it gets out too old, the stars are out in the outer perimeters, they start folding back in. But the motion is more like that than it is like that. I think that'll finish up today. That's all from Brian Whitten and ET Art. I hope you had a lovely day, and I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was useful to probably somebody. Thank you. Bye bye.